Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good. Welcome to you all. It's a very happy occasion to begin our study of several short Upanishads. Maybe just a tiny hair more. Otherwise, I'll strain my voice. I push if I don't hear enough. And I'm curious, how many of you attended our Vedanta class last year when we covered the short works on Advaita Vedanta by Shankara? Okay, wonderful. For those of you who didn't, that's absolutely fine. But the reason I wanted to find out is those of you who attended last year will find this program utterly unlike what we did. It's same Vedanta. You wonder, how can it be the same Vedanta? I'll explain why. But the same Vedanta we studied through the works of Adi Shankaracharya last year. We're going to be studying the same Vedanta in this program using several short Upanishads. And you'll find that the nature and approach is so utterly different than what we saw before. There we go, good. We won't need this for a few minutes, but we'll get that ready. Yeah. So what we've chosen to do, so we're starting tonight, and we'll continue probably until spring. And in this period of time, we'll take several short Upanishads, the first of which will be Isha, or Ishavasya Upanishad. The next will probably take Kaivalya Upanishad, and we'll certainly take the famous Mandukya Upanishad. If there's time, we may add in something, because it's hard to judge how long it will take us, because Upanishads, as you'll discover very, very soon, is a very unique subject matter. What is a subject matter, of course, is the subject matter of Vedanta. The Upanishad, of course, is the source for what we call Vedanta. So we can begin with the question of what is Vedanta? And it's kind of a circular definition. Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanam. This is rather an important definition, so let me share it with you. I'll use Roman letters so that no one will have a problem reading. Good. And before we proceed, let me, since some of you are coming new, let me just speak for a moment about the nature and orientation of this class. Every Saturday morning, we have a class on Upanishads, on Bhagavad Gita now. Previously, it had been on a different section of the Mahabharata. And the purpose of that Saturday class is to take the teachings of Vedanta, the teachings of the ancient rishis, and present it in a way that's absolutely accessible and immediately applicable to your day-to-day life. That's the purpose and orientation of the Saturday morning class. This class on Tuesday nights, our Vedanta class, is meant to be a contrast to that class. This is a class where we'll take an opportunity to go more deeply into the teachings. You'll find that the nature of this class is therefore a little bit more scholarly and perhaps a lot more demanding in terms of the nature of its subject matter. So, if by the end of the evening, if you find this class material is not speaking to you because it seems too academic or too heavy or something, then you might want to consider attending that Saturday class. But many of you are already attending the Saturday class, and so this is specifically meant to take the teachings of the ancient rishis to a deeper level, to really understand things in a very fundamental way, in a very thorough way. And that's our tradition of Vedanta. Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanam. What do we mean by Vedanta? There are two ways of understanding it. One is an etymological way. Vedanam antaha. That which is at the end of the Vedas is Vedanta. What do we mean at the end of the Vedas? You all know there are 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, Veda. You may also know that each of the 4 Vedas has 4 subsections, 4 parts, 4 bhagas or khandas. The first of which is Samhita. Samhita are all the hymns which are chanted, including this hymn. The next part is called Brahmana. This is a little bit academic, but it's important to understand what is Vedanta. This is a Vedanta class. Just as a funny aside, can you imagine going to a class where you didn't know the meaning of the subject matter? It's like going to a computer class to study a language called C++, and you have no idea what is C++. Plus what? It happens to be the name of a computer language. The point I'm making is, if you don't even know the subject matter of the class, how can we even begin? So let's begin by understanding what is Vedanta. Brahmana is the second section. Each of the 4 Vedas have these 4 parts. Brahmana would include all the instructions for ritual. Next comes Aranyaka, which are mostly meditations, very symbolic. And then we come to the Anta, the last section of the Upanishad, which, not surprisingly, Upanishad. There we go. Now you know why. Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanam. We have to explain the word pramana. But Upanishad happens to be the 4th section, the final section in each of the Upanishads. Since the Upanishads come at the end, therefore the word Vedanta is derived, that which comes at the end of the Vedas. Of course, now the next question is, what is Upanishad? It's so significant that the subject matter of the Upanishads is utterly different than the subject matter of the Samhita, Brahmana, and Aranyaka in the Upanishad, in the Vedas. And so much so that most scholarly analyses will say that the first 3 form what's called karma, kanda. That means a section concerning karma. Now, you may remember this from prior classes. When we use the word karma, when talking about Vedas, the word karma always means Vedic rituals. When the word karma is used in the Vedas with regard to Vedic scriptures, karma means Vaidika karma, Vedic rituals. So, the first 3 parts of each of the 4 Vedas is primarily concerned with rituals. The last part, Jnana Kanda, concerned with jnanam, spiritual wisdom, spiritual knowledge, understanding. That's our subject matter. And that's what this word means. Depending on what you seek, you need a means of accomplishing that. Depending on the sadhya, that which you want to accomplish, there is a sadhana, a means. For example, if you want to come to the ashram, if coming here for class is sadhya, your goal, you need a sadhana, a means of coming, which in most cases is a car. If you want a nice meal, If that's your sadhya, you need a sadhana. Sadhana might be cooking. Sadhana might be your spouse. It depends on your situation. Sadhana might be the cook in a restaurant. We don't know. Whatever it is. Suppose what is sadhya for us, and this is a more important introduction to what is Vedanta. Suppose what is sadhya is freedom from suffering. Not a drive to the ashram, not a home-cooked meal, but freedom from suffering. We have a nice name for that word, that freedom from suffering. Freedom in general, moksha. And when we use moksha in this Vedantic context, we're specifically talking about freedom from suffering. If your goal, sadhya, is freedom from suffering, you need an appropriate sadhana, an appropriate means. Now, what is the means for gaining moksha? What is the means for putting an end to suffering? Well, it depends on what is the source of suffering. If suffering is due to a headache, then I suppose the sadhana would be called Tylenol, if that's the nature of the suffering. But we're talking about a very fundamental kind of human suffering here. And a topic that we will develop again and again in these classes is the vision of the ancient rishis, and perhaps one of the most profound insights of the ancient rishis. And that is that the ultimate source of human suffering is failure to recognize your own inner divinity, failure to recognize the fullness and completeness that is your true self, Atma, which the ancient rishis called Satchit Ananda. That Satchit Ananda Atma, the truth of yourself, is full, complete, perfect, unborn, uncreated, boundaryless, limitless. We can go on and on and on and on. And that's the truth, that's the essence of you, but generally it remains unknown, it remains hidden, it remains undiscovered. And the failure to recognize your true nature as Satchidananda Atma, in the view of the ancient rishis, that is the fundamental source of suffering. The fundamental cause for human suffering, in their view, is ignorance. And I won't say in their view, because in your experience and mine, the fundamental, and we'll discuss this as we go along, the fundamental source of suffering happens to be ignorance of your true nature. Not any kind of ignorance in general, but specifically ignorance of your true nature as Satchidananda. So, if moksha means freedom from suffering, and suffering is due to ignorance, then what is the fundamental cause for moksha? If suffering is due to ignorance, moksha means freedom from suffering, it means a removal of ignorance. Which is why Sri Shankara said very boldly, Jnanameva mokshaha. Moksha is nothing but knowledge, and not any kind of knowledge, but specifically discovery of your true nature. Now, where have we come? And this may seem a little circuitous, but we're still trying to finish up our opening statement. What is Vedanta? Vedanto nama, Vedanta by name, is something that's in an Upanishad. What is it that's in the Upanishad? It's a pramanam. Pramanam is a Sanskrit word that literally means means of knowledge. That which produces knowledge is a pramana. A common example is right now, your eyes are a pramana for seeing me. Your ears are a pramana for hearing me. So these are means of knowledge. A pramana for knowing a pramana for solving a right triangle. If you know the two sides of a triangle and you want to find out what is the hypotenuse, the pramana for that is something called Pythagoras' theorem. So, for knowledge, there's also a pramana. For this knowledge, for the knowledge that gives rise to moksha, for the knowledge that puts an end to human suffering, for the spiritual wisdom that reveals your true nature as Satchidananda Atma, and thereby frees you from suffering, for that specific knowledge, there must be a means of knowledge, something that makes you discover that truth. That means of knowledge is called pramana. So through the pramana, which is in the form of Upanishad, you gain the knowledge which yields moksha, freedom from suffering. That, by name, is what we mean by Vedanta. Now you know what Vedanta is from two levels. One is the etymological understanding, that which is at the end of the Vedas, and in a more fundamental way, what is Vedanta good for? What's its purpose? What's its use? And now we see. Vedanta is a pramana found in the Upanishads, a means of knowledge which can produce in you, in your mind, in your intellect, it can produce the knowledge that destroys ignorance of your true nature, that reveals to you your true nature as Satchidananda Atma, and thereby producing moksha. Now, how that knowledge creates moksha is a huge topic. That's not what we're going to discuss right now. We will definitely come to it, but that's not our current subject matter. So, all of this to introduce what is Vedanta, what is Upanishad. We're going to study several short Upanishads, the first of which, as I said, is Isha Upanishad. There are many Upanishads. At the end of each of the four Vedas, there are many Upanishads, probably over 100 altogether, many at the end of each Upanishad. The Isha is unique among all the Upanishads. The Isha Upanishad, or Ishavasya, it goes by both names, is unique for two reasons. One reason, many of you know that Adi Shankaracharya, Sri Shankara, chose to write commentaries on 10 of the Upanishads. These 10 Upanishads happen to be among the most profound of the Upanishads. And Sri Shankara chose very carefully which Upanishads to write commentaries upon. And Isha was the first of those 10 upon which Sri Shankara wrote commentaries. So Sri Shankara, of course, is the primary figure in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. That's our tradition. So therefore, the works of Shankara are of utmost importance. His commentaries on the Upanishads are of utmost importance. The fact that Shankara chose, of those 100 plus Upanishads, Sri Shankara chose the Isha Upanishad first. Must be a reason. So that's one reason. The Isha Upanishad is unique among the Upanishads. There's another reason. A very strange reason. If some of you are a little bit more scholarly and have actually gone through the Vedas and studied, you'll find that the Isha Upanishad, if you physically go through the Vedas, I doubt many of you have done that. I have. And if you go to the last part of the Veda and you start paging through. Now, it happens that the Isha Upanishad is part of the Yajurveda. Some of you may know that there are two recensions, two versions, as it were, of the Yajurveda. There's a Krishna Yajurveda and a Shukla Yajurveda. Krishna means dark, Shukla means light or white. So it happens that the Isha Upanishad is found in the Shukla Yajurveda. Don't worry. If this sounds utterly boring and irrelevant, no problem. but you'll see something a little bit more important in just a moment. So suppose you're going through the Shukla Yajurveda, you'd open it up to the end, and you're looking for where the Isha Upanishad comes. There are so many Upanishads there, maybe a dozen or more. You see one Upanishad after another, after another, after another, and you don't find the Isha Upanishad. You say, Swami Tadatmananda said it was in the Shukla Yajurveda, but I just went through all the Upanishads in the Shukla Yajurveda. It's not there. It's not. The second reason the Isha Upanishad is unique is it's misplaced. It's not located with the other Upanishads. Oddly enough, it's here in the Samhita. So the Isha Upanishad is in this hymn section, the Samhita section of the Upanishad. Now you might say, but Swamiji, you said it's Upanishad Vedanta means that which comes at the end. Well, if it helps you at all, the Isha Upanishad comes at the end of the Samhita. It does. It happens to form the last chapter of the Shukla Yajurveda Samhita. Sorry for being so academic, but this is just what it is. So this leads to something very interesting. The Isha Upanishad is, to my knowledge, the only Upanishad which occurs in the Samhita, which includes all the hymns that are chanted. For this reason, the Isha Upanishad is also called Samhitopanishad. Samhita Upanishad, the two words combined. Samhita Upanishad, Samhitopanishad. The Upanishad which occurs in the Samhita. And since it's the only Upanishad that occurs in the Samhita, then we can call Isha Upanishad Samhitopanishad. There's one other consequence of this. So it's odd that it's included in the Samhita section, the hymn section. But one consequence of that, which I find significant, the Samhita is all used for chanting. So when you chant, like Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya, Namaste Rudramanyava Uto Teshave Namaha, Namaste Astu Dhanvane Bahubhyam Utate Namaha. This kind of chanting, this melodic chanting, is what you find in the Upanishad. You notice that my chanting was accompanied by this swara. Swara means pitch. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. This is common in Vedic recitation. And this form of chanting is always present, almost always present in the Samhita. It may or may not be present in the other parts. In fact, it's often not present in the other parts of the Vedas, but it's usually present in the Samhita because these were the prayers that were chanted. Actually, they were chanted during the Vedic rituals, during yajna. So as you're making offerings, I don't think you're doing this anymore, but as ancient peoples, ancient Hindus were making offerings into that yajna kund, into the sacred fire, they're chanting these hymns, these prayers, and they're chanting them with swaras. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Those swaras are present throughout the Samhita, including the Isha Upanishad. So the Isha Upanishad is unique for the second reason, and that is because it is part of the Samhita, it includes swaras, Vedic intonation, which we will actually use in this class. So we will chant it with the original Vedic and Vedic notation. Before we finish that topic, I should mention that everything in the Samhita is supposed to be connected to Vedic rituals, Vaidika karma. then you might think, well, wait a minute. The Isha Upanishad is in this Shukla Yajurveda Samhita. Therefore, it must be associated with karma. In his introduction to the Upanishad, in Shankara's commentary, Shankara's Bhashya means commentary. In his commentary to the Upanishad, he goes on for many paragraphs explaining that even though the Isha Upanishad happens to be somehow stuck in this karma kanda, he makes it very clear that the subject matter of this Isha Upanishad is not about Vedic rituals. He makes it very clear. He says it's all about spiritual wisdom. It's all about jnana. So he makes that point very clearly. If it were associated with rituals, we wouldn't choose it for this class. It wouldn't be appropriate. That's not what we're here to study. Okay. I think we're almost done with that. I should mention that when we say short Upanishads, they get pretty short. This Isha Upanishad is just 18 verses. But you're going to find that these verses are not easily penetrated. When we began our discussion, I asked you how many had attended the classes on Shankara's works of Advaita that we studied last year. What you may remember, those of you who attended, was how methodical Sri Shankaracharya's teachings were. How it leads you from one thing to the next. It's like a well-written textbook, almost. Very methodical. Then we made the course even more methodical by arranging these texts of Sri Shankara in a certain order. So what we saw in that program is a very methodical unfoldment of the teachings of Advaita Vedanta. Those of you who were there, you might remember that first we studied the Tvam Pada, the meaning of the word Tvam. Then we studied the Tat Pada, the meaning of the word Tat. And finally, in the end, we studied the identity of the two, as we see expressed in the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. How methodical can you be? It's almost like an equation. It's not an equation, but it has that kind of methodical nature to it. The Isha Upanishad, in fact, all the Upanishads, could not be more different. If you want to study something methodical, you're welcome to leave now. Because hopefully my teachings will be methodical, but the Upanishad is definitely not. It is poetry, spiritual poetry, mystical poetry of the highest order. It's amazing. Just amazing stuff. Can you imagine a poet who wants to be methodical? Does that make any sense? Methodical poet is an oxymoron. It doesn't make any sense. The whole idea of poetry is to break out of any structure and methodology, to be completely free, uninhibited, unrestricted. So in the Upanishads, and we'll see in just a few moments, in the Isha Upanishad, we have these unrestricted expressions of the ancient rishis. The ancient rishis who somehow were able to discover these profound truths, and then the profound truths they discovered, they then expressed in this poetic form. So we are getting now Vedanta not as it is systematized by Sri Shankara. That was what we studied last year. But in this program, we're going to study the very source, the mula. Mula means root. So we're going now to the mula of Vedanta, the very root or source of Vedanta, which means these very esoteric, puzzling, mystifying statements of the ancient rishis. I'll just share with you an anecdote. When I was, I think, a student, maybe in high school, I remember I remember telling someone that I hate poetry. That's how I felt as a high school student. I hate this poetry. Why can't they just say what they mean? Why do they have to express everything in such obscure, difficult language? I found it so frustrating, so difficult. I found it unpleasant. I really disliked poetry as a high school student. It's taken me a long time to change my mind, but I have completely. Over the years, I've come to appreciate something that you all know very well. Poetry exists because it can convey something that prose cannot. If prose were sufficient, why would we bother with poetry at all? That was my complaint as a high school student. But the fact is that prose is not sufficient. When we were studying Shankara, even though it was mostly in verse form, it was pretty much a prose style. He was teaching us. Shankara is a teacher. So we are getting his teachings in the form of his texts. But now when we start the study of Isha Upanishad, we're not studying prose, we're not even getting methodical teachings. It's pure poetry, mystical poetry, esoteric poetry. And the reason it's in a poetic form is specifically so that it can convey something which prose cannot. What is it that prose cannot convey? Now, there are at two levels. One is at a worldly level. We're talking about worldly poetry now, not spiritual poetry. On a worldly level, most of you would agree that perhaps poetry can convey emotions and feelings in a more effective way than prose. That's often the case. A well-created poem, perhaps, can convey more vividly sensations and smells and tastes and emotions. All are a whole range of emotions. So that's a worldly value attached to poetry. But here we're not studying worldly poetry. It's a spiritual poetry. So what is the value then of spiritual poetry as compared to prose? And we can't do better than quote from the Taittiriya Upanishad, a very famous quotation, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The truth we seek, this truth, this knowledge that destroys ignorance about your true nature, the knowledge that reveals your true nature as Satchidananda Atma and then frees you from suffering, that knowledge is that which yato vacho nivartante, that from which words fall back. Vachaha nivartante. Words fall back. Manasa saha, along with your mind, words fall back, aprapya, having failed to grasp that truth. The Upanishads themselves admit that words are incapable of revealing the ultimate truth. This is really ironic. The Upanishads themselves admit that words are incapable of revealing the ultimate truth, and then they go on and use what? Words. But if you're going to use words, if you were an ancient rishi trying to use words to express that which is beyond words, maybe as an ancient rishi, you would avoid the limitations of prose and adopt a poetic style, because a poetic style can, to some extent, transcend the limitations of words. This is what we're studying now. So the rishis adopted this poetic style. It helps transcend the limitations of words, but it creates a challenge for us to understand that poetry. So that's what we're in for. On the other hand, the greater the challenge, the greater the reward. Absolutely. you'll find that if you're patient and make the effort to really understand what the ancient rishi wanted to convey. There's a problem. If you pick up any of the many translations of Isha Upanishad, it takes this wonderful poetry of the ancient rishis and reduces it to very simple English prose. How well do you think that simple English prose can express this lofty vision of the rishi, which the rishi expressed in mystical poetry? If you convert mystical poetry into simple English prose, aren't you kind of ruining it? Think of, many of you have a matrabhasha, mother tongue, other than English. Think about a poem in your matrabhasha. Think about translating that into simple English. How would it sound? Really lovely poem in Hindi, Telugu, etc. You put that in English, Marathi, whatever, it's going to sound bad. But you take this mystical poetry and just translate it into simple English. Forget it. You deprive it of its essence. You suck the sap out of that poetry, so to speak. So, what can we do? I'm going to be speaking in English and some Sanskrit, but we want to gain access to that vision of the rishis. For that reason, we're simply going to take our time. A final comment on poetry, something that you also learned is prose you can read once and you pretty much get it. If you're like me, you read a poem, you get to the end, and my feeling is, what was that? So you go back to the beginning, you read the poem again. And it's wait a minute, what is he saying? You read it again and again, and each time you read it, you penetrate the meaning more deeply. And eventually you penetrate that poem completely. And what you discover is something very beautiful, very profound, but chances are it doesn't come on the first reading of the poem, assuming it's a good poem. I mean, they're very simple poems, which are just nothing much. But if it's a very profound poem, it'll take several readings to get the full meaning, to really penetrate. So that's what we'll be doing with the Isha Upanishad and the other Upanishads. Even though they're very short, it may take us a while to get through. But we're in no hurry, first of all. And secondly, as we just said, the potential reward is great. Being able to get Vedanta right from the Rishi's mouth, so to speak, to try to get inside the Rishi's head, so to speak, to try to understand like they understood. That's our goal. That's what we'll attempt to do here. Okay, that is our introduction. And having concluded our introduction, we're ready to begin the Upanishad. Every Upanishad is preceded and followed by a Shanti mantra, a peace invocation. Actually, I'm going to be back on the board before long. Just leave it on. This class will require a lot of that. So every Upanishad is preceded by and followed by a Shanti mantra, a peace invocation. There are about 10 commonly used peace invocations, which are used for different Upanishads. That is to say, that particular Shanti mantras are associated with particular Upanishads. The particular Shanti mantra associated with the Isha Upanishad is this one. Many of you are familiar with this, but we're going to, since it really forms the opening section of the Upanishad, it's not one of the 18 verses, it precedes the 18 verses, but it is certainly a part of the Upanishad. In fact, it forms an excellent introduction to the first verse. So we're going to recite this and study the meaning right now in the next part of our class. But repeat after me, please. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Repeat. Om Purnamada Purnam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Hevavashishyate Purnam Hevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sounds different, doesn't it? That Om Shanti. These are the Vedic swaras. We're used to chanting Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. There's no rule that it's always that way. In this particular prayer, the swaras, the pitches are different. And most of you know this, that the pitches, the swaras, are indicated with these lines. A line below indicates a lowered pitch. The absence of a line means a middle pitch. And this prayer is odd in that it doesn't have any raised pitches. But you'll frequently find vertical lines which indicate a raised pitch. These are the 3 swaras which are used in the Vedas, with the exception of the Sama Veda. Sama Veda has 5 swaras. Here we have only 3 swaras. Now, that's just for chanting, and it's through the chanting with these swaras, that's how these Upanishads were transmitted from generation to generation. The whole Vedas were passed on through this oral tradition of chanting from teacher to student, and that's why we have these swaras. Now, the meaning of this prayer, all of Vedanta is in this prayer. I won't say all, but some of the most profound teachings of Vedanta are expressed in this prayer. I'll mention that in preparation for this class, I started reading a text by a great scholar, Swami Vidyananda Giri, who is the current head of the Kailas Ashram in Rishikesh. In Rishikesh, Kailas Ashram is the epitome of scholarship in Rishikesh. So it means it's really up there. And I had the good fortune to meet Swami Vidyananda many years ago. Anyway, in his book, scholarly book, we said Isha Upanishad is 18 verses long. His book, his commentary, is 250 pages long on these 18 verses. So I started studying it. It's in Hindi, but then it's very Sanskritized Hindi, so it's like Sanskrit. So reading it, and I'm reading, and it goes on and on and on and on. The first 90 pages of the book are on Purnamada Purnamidam. 90 pages of this scholarly book devoted to this prayer. We're not going to spend that much time on it, but that suggests how profound and important this prayer is. So let's do this. Let's first get the simple, direct meaning, which itself is very profound, and then we're going to take it a step further and see a more profound meaning. See, the word that occurs again and again and again, Purnam, comes from a root pr, which means to fill. Purna happens, for the grammar students among you, Purna happens to be a past participle, so it literally means filled, or simply full. Purna means full. Full in the sense of complete. Full in the sense, if you have a bottle of water that's full, nothing more will go in. It's absolutely full, it's complete, it's total. So Purna is used in that sense. That which is full, that which is complete, that which is perfect, full in that sense. And the verse begins, Purnam Adaha. Adaha is the remote pronoun, that. Literally, that is full. Purnam adaha, that is full. Purnam idam, idam is the proximate pronoun, this. Idam purnam, this is full. Adaha purnam, that is full. Idam purnam, this is full. What? We'll see in just a moment. Purnat, from that fullness, purnam, this fullness, udachyate, came forth. Huh? Poetry, right? That is full. This is full. From that fullness, this fullness came forth. Purnasya purnamadaya, and when this fullness came from that fullness, purnam eva avashishyate, fullness alone remained. Huh? Once again, that is full, this is full. From that fullness, this fullness came forth. When this fullness came forth from that fullness, fullness alone remained. This is a very literal translation of this lofty poetry. Now let's understand what exactly is being described here. Adaha, the remote pronoun, that, is used to refer to something remote from our experience. And in this context, adaha refers to the source of creation. The source of creation, we could say, Ishvara, the God. Ishvara, God. Let's attempt to make some sense out of this poetry. All right. So adaha is that. And here, that is remote. So the source of creation, the source of everything. And let us use the word, could use the word Isha, if we want to. Isha or Ishvara, same meaning. Then idam, this is what is not remote. Grammarians use the word proximate, near. So idam is that which is in our experience. If that is beyond our experience, then idam, this, should be what is in our experience. What is in our experience? The world. So this is the simple meaning, by the way. We'll get to the deeper meaning in just a moment. So the world, jagat. And certain Sanskrit words we just have to use. And those of you who don't have a very big Sanskrit vocabulary, you'll build it up very quickly in a class like this. Just if the word is unfamiliar, make sure you write it down and get the definition so that you have good vocabulary. We need that vocabulary in a class like this. So that represents Ishvara, the source of everything. Idam, this, represents Jagat, the entire universe. The entire universe clearly includes you and me. Be very clear about that. So now we can look at the first line. Purnam adaha, that Ishvara is full, complete. We could include words like limitless or infinite. Purnam doesn't mean infinite, but in this verse, the translation infinite happens to work quite well. Even though Purna literally means full, you'll see as the verse yields its meaning, to loosely translate it as infinite is very meaningful. So, Ishvara, the source of everything, is full, complete, limitless, infinite. This universe, which comes from Ishvara, is full, complete, limitless, infinite, this universe. Purnat, from Purna. Now here, this is a little grammatical trick. Purna could mean either that Purna or this Purna. So the word Purnat is referring to that Purna. From that Ishvara, from that full, complete, limitless, infinite Ishvara, from that Ishvara, Purnam Udachyate. Which Purnam? This full, complete, limitless universe came forth. I'll paraphrase the first two lines now. Ishvara is infinite. This world is infinite. From the infinite Ishvara, this infinite world came forth. Now that's making sense. It's poetry. We have to penetrate it a little bit. Now, second half. Purnasya Purnam Adaya. Adaya, having taken Purnam, Purnasya, from Purnam. Having taken Purnam from Purnam. What does that mean? Having taken this full, complete, limitless universe, having taken the limitless universe from that limitless Ishvara, or when the limitless universe came forth from the limitless Ishvara, then what was left? Avashishyate means it remains. What remains is Purnam Eva, fullness alone, which means that fullness, that Ishvara alone remains. Now, the last two lines. When this limitless world, use the word infinite. When this infinite world came forth from infinite Ishvara, Ishvara remained infinite. In mathematics and economics, they talk about this zero-sum game. This violates principles of mathematics. When the world came forth from Ishvara, Ishvara should be somehow reduced. But this verse very clearly says that when the universe came forth from Ishvara, its creator remained unchanged, full and complete. It's very non-mathematical. It challenges you. You wonder how can a creator create and remain and create from itself? We have to go into this a little bit more. In order to understand this, so once again, the whole meaning, and then we're going to take it the next step. So it says, to paraphrase the whole thing, Ishvara is infinite. This world is infinite. From the infinite Ishvara, this infinite world came forth. And when this infinite world came forth from the infinite Ishvara, Ishvara remained infinite, unchanged. Now, since that violates some laws of mathematics, we have to assume that there's a different kind of creation going on. And what I'd like to do with you, if it's okay, to share with you some of the very profound teachings of Vedanta that explain creation, and explain creation in a way utterly unlike creation is explained anywhere else. This Vedic hymn is an expression of an absolutely unique understanding of creation, of the act of creation, of the process of creation. How creation takes place is explained by every religious tradition, explained differently by every religious tradition. You'll see that the Vedantic explanation is just unique and amazing. And we need to get a little bit of background, and this is a little bit of, I guess I have to use the word philosophy, Indian philosophy. So there are several schools of Indian philosophy. Vedanta is one. And every school of philosophy has a different theory of creation. I guess the fancy Greek word for that is cosmology. How's that? Cosmology means a theory or teaching of creation. So there are several. Actually, you'll like this one as a beginning one. This sounds very foreign and intimidating, but this is actually the doctrine found in the Bible. Asat Karya Vada. The biblical story of creation is God says, "Let there be light." And there was light. And it was good. Very nice poetry. I like the poetry of the Bible too. It's very beautiful. Christians interpret this in a way, in fact, in Latin, they call it creatio ex nihilo, creation out of nothing. God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And it shined upon the heavens and the earth, and it was good, or whatever is the passage. I don't remember all the details. This same doctrine was expressed by certain ancient Indian philosophers known as Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas. These are two schools. Nyaya and Vaisheshika are two ancient schools of Indian philosophy. And they had this theory, which they called Asat Karya Vada. Karya means effect. Vada means theory, in this case. So a theory that says the effect is asat, non-existent, and it's shorthand, non-existent in the cause. The effect is non-existent in the cause. This is philosophy. I'll try to make some sense out of this and move ahead for you. The effect is non-existent in the cause. When God created light, that light was not present in God. It came from nothing. Creatio ex nihilo. Ex from nihilo, from nothing. Creation from nothing. Which means light was utterly non-existent, asat, and it came into existence. It became karya. It became a creation. So asat karya vada is a doctrine or a theory that says that the effect was utterly non-existent before the act of creation. Literally, it means creation from nothing. And this asat karya vada is shared by Christians, Jews, Muslims, the ancient followers of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. So these are the ones who ascribe to asat karya vada, creation from nothing. You're thinking, that's pretty, it's very philosophical, but it's not very meaningful. Creation from nothing. Common sense tells you that something comes from something. Something doesn't come from nothing. In fact, nothing comes from nothing. So it is philosophical, but it's not very philosophically satisfying. I think most of you would agree. Philosophical, but not philosophically satisfying. Fortunately, there is a satkarya vada. By the way, I wouldn't drag you through this philosophy if it were unnecessary. It's absolutely necessary to understand this prayer properly. You'll never get this prayer properly unless you understand there's a little bit of philosophy. So bear with me. So satkarya vada is a doctrine or theory that says the effect existed in some manner. It was existent, sat. It was existent prior to the act of creation. So it doesn't mean, it means it's not creation out of nothing. It's creation from something. Basically, that the karya, the effect, was somehow existent prior to to the act of creation. It's not coming from nothing, it's coming from something. Now, how shall we understand this? Well, sorry to be so complicated, but there are two kinds of Satkaryavada. There are people who spend their lives studying this. To me, it's too... I couldn't spend my life studying this, but some of this is real crucial to get a proper understanding. So that's why we're going through this. There are two kinds of Satkaryavada. One is called Parinamavada. Parinama means change or transformation. Parinamavada is one of two kinds of Satkaryavada. Parinama means change or transformation. And finally, we can get to something that you can relate to. Do many of you make yogurt at home? Nice. Most people don't make, Indians make yogurt at home. Most people don't. Most people go to the market and buy yogurt. But it's nice. Homemade yogurt always tastes so much nicer. But it's a great example. You make yogurt from milk. When yogurt is created, does it come from nothing? So when yogurt is created, it comes from something, comes from milk. So then, therefore, the creation of yogurt is definitely Satkaryavada. But to take it a step further, the yogurt is present in the milk in a potential form. This is very philosophical, but it works. In the milk, yogurt is present in a potential manner. And when you prepare the milk properly, the milk transforms itself into yogurt. Parinama means transformation. So Parinamavada is a doctrine of transformation. Just as milk is transformed into yogurt, in the same way, Purusha and Prakriti is transformed into this universe. This is the teaching of a philosophical school called Sankhya. And we haven't come to Vedanta yet. That's the last one. So far, we see a Satkaryavada practiced by the biblical traditions and also in the ancient traditions of Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Then we've come to Parinamavada, which is transformation. God, you can't say Ishvara or God. The source of the universe transforms itself into the universe. This is what the ancient followers of Sankhya taught. The source of the universe, which they called Purusha and Prakriti, transforms itself into the universe. This is Parinamavada. But it's not this. When milk transforms itself, when milk is transformed into yogurt, do you have any milk left? But what does this end with? Purnam eva avashishyate. To translate this will sound ridiculous, but let's see what happens. You have Purnam adaha. You have 1 liter of milk, Purnam idam, and which becomes one liter of curds, yogurt. Purnat Purnam udachyate. From 1 liter of milk, 1 liter of yogurt came forth. Purnasya Purnamadaya. When 1 liter of yogurt came forth from 1 liter of milk, Purnam eva avashishyate. 1 liter of milk remains. What? We said it violates mathematics. Totally. It looks unreasonable. It certainly is unmathematical. So obviously, what this Vedantic prayer expresses is not only is it outside of Asatkaryavada, it is certainly outside even of Parinamavada, leading us finally to the Vedantic vision of creation, which is called Vivartavada. Vivartavada. Vivarta means projection. Vivartavada, projection. And we're going to see this at great length when we get to the Mandukya Upanishad, but we need it briefly now to get the meaning of this prayer. The best example, the same example found in Mandukya Upanishad, is the example of your own dream. You create in your mind a dream world at night when you dream. Your dream world has houses and cars and people, everything. Whatever is in this world, you can create in your dream world. What is the source for the dream creation? Now, dream creation can't come from nothing. So, asatkaryavada is out. So, dream must come from something. Satkaryavada. But your dream isn't exactly a transformation of anything, because, and this we'll study in some detail when we get to the Mandukya, but what we understand is the source for dream, like the source for any mental activity, the source is consciousness. From your consciousness, thoughts come. From your consciousness, emotions come. From your consciousness, dreams come. From your consciousness, dream worlds arise, and when you wake up, your dream world returns to consciousness. This is a famous metaphor. Just like when you dream, from your consciousness, a dream world appears. When you wake up, that dream world returns to consciousness. This becomes a metaphor for creation. Now, if consciousness transforms itself into your dream world, then you would be unconscious. If you're unconscious, you wouldn't know you're dreaming. So parinamavada is out. Your consciousness does not transform itself into the dream world. Your dream world arises from consciousness. How? Wow. That's not an easy answer. That's not an easy question to answer. We will spend several classes working on that. One thing we know is it happens. From your consciousness, a dream arises. When a dream arises from your consciousness, what happens to your consciousness? Nothing. This is the model. This is the doctrine. The Vedantic doctrine or theory of creation is based on this dream metaphor. From your consciousness, everything comes. Your dream worlds come, your thoughts come, your emotions come. But when they are created from your consciousness remains utterly unaffected. Now, our minds are limited. Imagine such a thing as a limitless mind, a boundaryless mind, an infinite mind. Whose mind? Ishvara's mind. So, from consciousness, Purnam Adaha, from consciousness associated with an infinite mind, Purnam Idam. Now we have to get the analogy working here. Purnam Adaha. The consciousness associated with Ishvara's limitless mind, the consciousness itself is also limitless, infinite. Purnam Idam. For this limitless creation is pervaded also by limitless consciousness. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. From this limitless mind, actually I'm mixing up two things, so let me simplify it a little bit. From Ishvara's limitless mind, we'll stay with the dream analogy. It's as though Ishvara dreams. As though. This world is not Ishvara's dream, this is a metaphor. So if you imagine Ishvara, the creator of all, having an infinite mind, so from that infinite mind creates an infinite world. Like from your limited mind comes your limited dream world. From this limitless mind comes this limitless world. And Purnat Purnamudachyate. That's exactly. From that limitless mind, this limitless universe came forth. Purnasya Purnamadaya. When this limitless world came from that limitless Ishvara, Purnameva avashishyate. Ishvara remains limitless. Ishvara is not reduced in any sense, just as your consciousness is not reduced when you create a dream world. No change. Your consciousness is unchanged when you dream, when you create a dream world. In the same way, Ishvara remains limitless, boundaryless, infinite, unchanged when the universe comes forth. Now you get a better idea of this profound prayer. Purnam Adaha. There is an infinite source of all. Purnamidam. This world is infinite. Purnat Purnamudachyate. This limitless world came from that limitless source. Purnasya Purnam Adaya. When this limitless world came from that limitless source, Purnameva Vashishyate, that source remained limitless. Very profound. If you just read it, look at the problem though. If you read some translation, that is full, this is full, from that this came forth. What does that mean? So that's the point I made before. This is very profound poetry, but you can see when we make the effort to penetrate the deeper meaning of the poetry, we discover something incredibly profound and incredibly beautiful. So this is the invocation we'll begin each class with, and we'll just see the very beginning of the first of the 18 verses of the Upanishad. Traditionally, in an Upanishad, we won't call them verses because it's Veda, so we'll call them 18 mantras. So the first mantra of the Veda, actually I have it with the swaras. We mentioned that they have swaras. Unfortunately, we don't have the swaras on this text. Oh, while I'm talking about the text, let me mention that the slides that we're using here are available on our website. So you can go to our website, arshabodha.org, go to the teaching section. You'll find a section, Short Upanishads, and you'll find the text, exactly the same slides we have here. It's available, so you can make notes, you can follow along. It also has a exactly what you see here. 4 slides per page. If you have any problem, sometimes when you click on it, if it comes up garbled, download it. If it comes up garbled, just download it, it'll work fine. If you double-click it from the website and it's garbled, don't despair. Instead, download it. Many of you know you right-click and save as, etc., and or get someone to help you if you need help. So it's there. It works, and so you can get a copy of the text and follow along. Okay, let's see a little bit of this first mantra. Repeat after me, please. Om is missing. It should begin with Om. Listen and repeat. Om Isha Bhasyam. Om Isha Bhasyam. Idagam Sarvam. Idagam Sarvam. Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagata. Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagata. Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita. arthena tyaktena bhunjita magridha kasya swidhanam magridha kasya swidhanam. You usually don't hear Upanishads chanted like that. But because this is Samhita Upanishad, because this Isha Upanishad occurs in a Samhita, we have these swaras. Let's just see the opening phrase. We need to study this much more thoroughly, but just in I said we should at least begin this in our first class. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Idam Sarvam. Idam, this. Sarvam, all of this. All of this what? All of this jagat. All of this world. Idam sarvam jagat. This entire world, jagatyam, which exists in this physical reality. Literally it says, the world which is in the world, poetry. This entire world which exists in this physical plane, we can take that, jagatyam. This idam sarvam jagat, this entire world, jagatyam, which is in the physical plane, all of this is yatkincha, whatever is there. Yatkincha, whatever exists in this entire world, in the physical plane, all of this is vasyam. Vasyam is a very peculiar word in this verse. Vasyam means that which should be covered. Vasyam. Shankara glosses it, achadaniyam. Same thing, that which should be covered. If somebody is standing with no clothes on, vasyam. Achadaniyam. Should be covered. Covered by what? This entire world, whatever exists here in this entire world, is vasyam, should be covered. Covered by what? Isha. By Ish. Ish? Ishatra, in Sanskrit is a little complicated here. Ishatra is the... Ish is the dhatu, the verbal root from which Ishvara comes. The verbal root ish means to rule, to be the Lord. So Ishatra means the Lord or creator of the world. Ishvara means that Lord or creator of the world, God in loose terms. Isha is in the instrumental case, it means by Ishvara. So this entire world, whatever exists here in this entire world, should be covered by Ishvara. What in the world does that mean? Should be covered by Ishvara. Well, I'll just give you a brief explanation now, and then we'll see it in much more detail when we meet next time. We've just seen, according to this Vivartavada, that the universe is a manifestation of Ishvara. Your dream is a manifestation of your consciousness. Your dream is non-separate from your consciousness. In fact, your dream is nothing but your consciousness plus nama rupa plus name and form. We'll see this in more detail in our next class. In the same way, this universe is a manifestation of Ishvara, meaning this universe is non-separate from Ishvara. This universe is nothing but Ishvara in all these various forms. Ishvara in the form of a chair, Ishvara in the form of a table, Ishvara in the form of glasses, Ishvara in the form of a Swami, Ishvara in all these forms. But this is generally not understood. Generally we think table, chair, Swami, there's so many things. But we can understand, we can appreciate that all that exists are Ishvara's presence in so many forms. Then as part of our quest for spiritual knowledge, shouldn't we include all that we experience within Ishvara. To include all that we experience within Ishvara is to cover all that exists with Ishvara. Do you see the usage of this word to cover? It's an odd use. Poetry. If you ask, why did they say to cover? He's a poet. A poet can use any word they want, and they use it for specific reasons. So here, in a poetic way, when he says, all this world, whatever exists in this world, is to be covered by Ishvara, means we are supposed to recognize that all that we experience is included within Ishvara, is a manifestation of Ishvara, is Ishvara present in so many different names and forms. What a profound way to begin the text. That's the opening line of the text. And now you can also see why we call it Isha Upanishad or Ishavasya Upanishad. It's called alternately by either name. It just happens to be the first names. Many of the Upanishads are named in that way. The first, not all, but many. In fact, some, I better qualify that, some Upanishads are named in that way, where the opening words are the name of the Upanishad. So we've run out of time for today. So let me conclude with some announcements. We'll continue with this in our next class. First announcement with regard to class format. Starting next week, we're going to begin each class with silent meditation. It's absolutely essential that we listen with a properly prepared mind. You've had a busy day, and if you come here with all that busyness in your mind, these teachings won't really go in properly. So at 7:30, there will be a 15-minute silent meditation. The doors will be closed during that silent meditation. Don't enter. Means be here before 7:30, before the doors close. And we certainly don't want to see a lot of people coming in at 7:45. That won't look very good. Once in a while you may get late and it's unavoidable. We understand that. But as a rule, everyone should be present by 7:30 for the beginning of our meditation. To encourage you to come on time, one thing that we started doing last year, which worked very nicely, is to have some informal question-answer before class. After class is too late anyway. By 9 o'clock, it's time to go home and relax. So instead of having question-answer after class, what we've started doing last year is before class. So I'll come out here at 7:15. So sometime between 7:15 and 7:30, you should plan on arriving. And I will, any questions you may have, we'll have some informal time together and some dialogue, question-answer time. So from 7:15 to 7:30, then we're all here by 7:30. Doors are closed. We have 15 minutes of meditation, and then our class will continue, and we'll always finish before 9 o'clock. That will be our format throughout. I should also mention some other classes. We've just resumed study of the Bhagavad Gita. I made reference to that before. We've just begun. If you haven't studied the Bhagavad Gita properly, or if you'd like to study it really nicely, we've just begun. It's the right time to start. So Saturday mornings at 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. Please join us for our Bhagavad Gita class. And we're also about to begin a new Sanskrit class, a beginning level Sanskrit class that I'll be teaching on Thursday evenings. If you're serious about learning Sanskrit, it's going to take some effort. Sanskrit is not an easy undertaking, but if you are highly motivated and ready for that, then come join us for the Sanskrit class that we'll meet on Thursday evenings at 7:30. And finally, once in a year, I'm supposed to make this kind of announcement about donations. You don't hear me talk about it much, but I think at the beginning of each class, I should mention that we don't charge tuition or fees for any of our programs. We rely entirely on donations. But in addition to that, every month you get a stack of bills. Every month we get a stack of bills. The point is that if you give a donation once, that helps us on that month. What about the next month and the next month and the next month? So my request is this. If you're attending programs regularly, please give a regular donation and preferably a monthly donation. Now, the amount is entirely up to you. Whatever you think is appropriate, that's your judgment. And whatever is your judgment is fine with us. But if it's a monthly donation of whatever amount you want, that will really help us a lot. If you want to do that in a more formal way, we have a Raksha Dana program. There's some yellow flyers. You can do it in a more formal way, or just simply put something in the donation box once in a month, whatever you like to do. That'll help a lot. And each class will conclude with our brief prayers. Good. I look forward to seeing you next week. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.